Okay, I'm going to ask you a question in a couple of seconds here, all right? This is a serious question. I just want to, let you know at the offset, I'm not trying to troll you. I'm not like, oh, okay, this is just a goofy question with a silly answer, and then I do a dance at the end of it. I mean, I could still do a dance at the end of it, but I'm just saying this is a serious question. Just because you ask a serious question doesn't mean dance can't be involved in the answer. Okay, and I'm already going off on a tangent, okay? Here is the question. Did Kaido used to be a fish? Well, I know. Hold on, here's the dance. Okay, there's the dance. Now, did Kaido actually have the ability to transform into a fish? Allow me to clarify, because many of you might be like, well, he has the power of the Ua Ua no Mi, which is the literal, fish fruit, so I guess he is a fish. But no, that's not what I'm talking about. Okay, I'll just go through this the way that I originally assumed how this works, and then the way that a lot of other people are saying how it worked, and then me being like, wait, what? So here it is. Okay. I assumed Kaido, after he ate the Ua Ua no Mi model Azure Dragon, or model Seiryu, okay? This happened 38 years ago at God Valley. Big Mom gave him the fruit. We don't know every little detail about the circumstances, but the way that Big Mom explained it was that Kaido was close to death, or he was about to die or something, and then Big Mom gave him the fruit, he ate it, and that created, the life debt that Kaido owes Big Mom, okay? And the ability that fruit gave Kaido allowed him to survive or escape or something like that. That's the idea that we know of. Okay. I assumed he ate the fruit, was immediately able to transform into a dragon, and then using the power of, a giant dragon, he could escape the Marines or Garp or, Roger or whoever else was there at God Valley that was about to kill Kaido or something. That's how he was able to escape, okay? Because the name of the fruit is the Ua Ua no Mi model Seiryu. So therefore, it's like whoever eats the fruit just turns into a dragon right away. And there was even a little bit more believability with this when you look at Momonosuke, after it was revealed that Momonosuke's fruit is a copy of Kaido's fruit through Vegapunk. Vegapunk, took, I guess, some DNA or some of the lineage factor from Kaido and then created Momonosuke's fruit. However, he did, in fact, deem it a failure. And so, even though it was deemed a failure, Momonosuke, in the story, don't know if you know this, is, in fact, a giant dragon. All right? And even back when Momonosuke was a little kid and he ate the fruit and he still turned into a dragon. He didn't turn into a fish, he turned into a dragon. Albeit a very small dragon, but he turned into a dragon, okay? So I just assumed, all right, you eat the fruit, you become a dragon, you fly away, that's awesome. Now, if Kaido ate the fruit when he was the same age as Momonosuke, Kaido would have been a little tiny dragon, and as he grew older, he would become a larger dragon, learn more of the abilities, the Boro Breath, the Flame Clouds, all that jazz, okay? That's the way I assumed this worked. Getting a few comments ever since the last chapter, ever since it was revealed in chapter 1046, Kaido said, to Luffy, in response to Luffy awakening his devil fruit, Kaido was like, yes, we call this an awakening, when the body and soul become one with the devil fruit. So we already assumed Kaido was awakened. I did as well, but people were saying, well, actually, it would make more sense if when Kaido first consumed the fruit, he actually turned into a carp, like a fish, and then through the awakening became a dragon, because that was the whole point of the myth. And I made a video about this, right when we found out the name of Kaido's devil fruit. I think it was in February of last year. I made a video talking about, the legend of the fish, and this is something that is prevalent, in Pokemon, for example. The Magikarp, reaches level 20, becomes a Gyarados. That is the origin of the legend, the origin of a koi fish. The legend's a little bit foggy because I haven't, looked into it, and it's been a while. It's been a year since that video. But I think the idea is if the koi fish lives 1,000 years or something, it climbs up a waterfall or swims up a waterfall and then emerges as an actual dragon on the other side, okay? And you can go watch that video to learn more about that, because that's where I kind of talk about the legend, okay? So, Kaido turns into a fish first, and then through awakening his devil fruit, then he becomes a dragon. Now, the reason that I thought, oh, that's not the way this works, that would be goofy, is because I'm picturing Kaido. I want you to picture him, okay? This is the way that I'm envisioning this. It'll probably not be like this, but it's God Valley. 38 years ago. Shit is getting live, okay? Garp and Roger have just burst into the place, wreaking havoc. They are fighting against Whitebeard, Roxy Zebek, Big Mom. They're fighting against Shiki, Wang Zhi. It's been a while since we had a good Wang Zhi on the channel. Silver Axe is there. Captain John is there. They're brawling with all of them. Kaido at this point, I think, is only 21 years old, okay? So he's caught in the crossfire here. There's a moment where Kaido is hanging over the edge of God Valley, and he's beat to shit, and he's about to fall in the water, and he's like, this is the end for Kaido. And then Big Mom shows up, and Big Mom, it was revealed that, you know, she was sort of like the big sister to Kaido. You know, like we saw that in the flashback after Big Mom was defeated. Kaido remembered like the first time he met her, and she was a few years older than him on the Rocks crew, and she was basically like, hey, are you a new recruit? Oh, you know, you're joining Rocks? Well, you can't trust him. In fact, you can't trust anybody on this ship except for me, okay? And Kaido was a little bit distraught when Big Mom was defeated by Kid in Law in this arc. So you get the impression that, like, okay, they trusted each other at least back in the day when they were on the Rocks crew together, right? Okay. So Big Mom sees Kaido about to die. It's like, here, take this, and gives him the mythical, you know, dragon zone. He eats it, and now I imagine, like, okay, I'll eat this fruit and survive. And then Kaido immediately turns into a Magikarp. Just, carp! And I'm like, there's no way that happened. So therefore, he must have turned into a dragon right away. Right? I don't know. I don't have an answer for you. But I was on a podcast the other day with Animac, and Gozen was there, Briggs was there. You know, we were talking about this, and it got brought up, and we were just, like, discussing this, and I'm like, shit, that actually does make a lot of sense just for the legend to be a fish first and then transform into a dragon. And I'm picturing Kaido, like I said, turn into like a floundering carp on the ground. But it doesn't have to be like that, right? Okay, picture Kaido's hybrid form right now as it exists as the dragon, okay? So when he goes into his hybrid form, I think he gets a little bulkier, he gains some more muscle, he's got the scales, he's got his horns, he's got his fangs and everything like that. He's got the tail and everything in his hybrid dragon form. Now, I want you to picture that hybrid form without the horns and without the fangs or the tail. Actually, we could honestly still have the tail, but without the horns and the fangs. That is probably more appropriate to what his hybrid zone looked like when he first ate the fruit. Like, he basically just turned into a giant fish. Now, he didn't have the ability to fly. He didn't have the ability to fire Boro breaths and all the lightning, like the devastating gusts, wind blades, and everything like that. He didn't have the power to do any of that. But he was still a giant fish that had, like, a lot of muscle, you know what I mean? Even before consuming the fruit, Kaido was kind of built, you know? He had a lot of muscle. He swang that Kanabo around. He could still, maybe the Thunder Bagura, he still had that and everything like that in Hasaikai, which is his Kanabo. He had all that. And remember back during Eni's Lobby, when Kaku and Khalifa were kind of on the fence about eating a devil fruit, Lucci sort of convinced them by saying, hey, even though we don't know what these fruits' powers are, no matter what happens, you won't get weaker. That's the power of a devil fruit, okay? You eat the fruit, and, you know, because of your skills, you will be able to make it powerful. Even if it isn't like a broken OP devil fruit, you can make it strong, okay? And so Kaku got the giraffe power, and then Khalifa got the soap power. But remember what Lucci said, like, no matter what happens, you won't get any weaker. So it is kind of, like, it was kind of ridiculous for me to think that, like, oh yeah, Kaido turns into a fish, and he's just floundering there, and then Garp just looks at it and just like, what's this fish doing here? You know what I mean? You know, nothing like that. So I think it was like, okay, his full animal form when he first ate the fruit basically just turned him into a giant Magikarp. Just picture a giant koi fish, all right? And here's the advantage here, and we brought this up on the stream. Maybe the advantage of being a fish fruit was you could breathe underwater. That's why they're so rare. And I think I even brought that up during the first video I discussed this. I think it was the first thing that popped in a lot of people's heads when we found out Kaido's fruit was the fish fruit. It's like, okay, maybe these are very select fruits. Only a few of them exist in the world. to the point where maybe even the fish fruits themselves might be deemed mythical or legendary because there's so few of them. Hell, I mean, Kaido might have the only one. Although, of course, the existence of a mythical variant fish fruit kind of like, well, maybe there is other fish fruits. They're just really rare or whatever. Maybe they're at the bottom of the ocean, so not a lot of people can get them or whatever. But maybe the advantage of having the fish fruit is it allows you to breathe underwater. Now, here's the thing. Breathing underwater and being able to move underwater, not the same thing. Look what happened to Jack. Jack was a fish man. He got knocked into the water by Zunisha. He didn't die because he could breathe underwater, and he's really built also, so I guess that means he could survive without food for a while, right? But yeah, he didn't have to worry about drowning is my point. Maybe it was a situation where Kaido consumed the dragon fruit, turned into a carp in its initial stages. He, could go into the water. He would not die in the water, but he also couldn't move in the water either because he still is a devil fruit user. Or maybe the fish fruits do have they're the special ones. They're the exception. You can swim and you can breathe underwater. And then that's how Kaido managed to escape. Could be something like that too. Also, you want to think about this, like what are some other abilities that Kaido could have had as a fish without getting like Boro breath? Like he could fire a giant aqua kamehameha, like an aqua jet out of his mouth. Nothing like that, but if he could turn into a giant fish in his full animal form, he could still beat the crap out of you, beat the carp out of you. You know what I mean? Like you ever get smacked with a giant fish? Probably not. Maybe you did. I don't know. Maybe you do extreme fishing for a hobby. You go out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean with like not even a fishing pole at that point. It's like a crane. You throw a crane in the water and you catch like a prehistoric giant fish and it's like towing the boat around and just like, this is what it is all about. And stuff like that. Maybe. I don't know what you do in your life. But yeah, I imagined Kaido, even when he first ate the fruit, turning into, picture Kaido as a giant fish hitting you. That's still going to hurt. That's still, applicable during battle. It's just he doesn't have all the crazy extra abilities. So he probably, awakened to his fruit not long after he consumed it because he was already really powerful and he probably trained with it quite a bit, right? We know he was already awakened by the time he arrived in Wano, which was somewhere between, I think, 20... Well, okay, here's the thing. Odin left with Whitebeard 30 years ago, okay? Wano was still under the control of Sukiyaki at that point, though he was sick and Orochi was doing his little scheme in the background, right? But Sukiyaki was still alive when Odin left. Then Odin comes back, I think, like somewhere between 26 and 25 years ago during Roger's last journey so they can get the copy of the poneglyph, okay? And during that time period, Sukiyaki had died, Orochi is in control, and we already see factories beginning to pop up in Wano. So it's possible Kaido had already, arrived at that point. If not exactly then, it was very close to then. So probably like, I would say no later than 25 years ago, Kaido arrived in Wano. So I would say somewhere between 30 and 25 years ago, that's when Kaido showed up. And I think he was already awakened at that point because the people of Wano already revered him as a dragon god. Hey, it might be a situation where Kaido was maybe even waiting to awaken so that when he did awaken and he knew he was going to turn into a dragon, he turned into a dragon and he's like, now I can rule over Wano as a dragon god or something like that. Maybe it might have been a situation there. So he got the fruit 38 years ago, awakened between 30 to 25 years ago. That fits. I mean, that lines up. Honestly, hey, look at Luffy. Luffy had his fruit. He ate the Gamu Gamu no Mi when he was 7. He awakened when he was 19. So that was 12 years with the fruit when he awoke to its true power. And Luffy has been constantly training with his fruit for that 12-year period, okay? He trained constantly when he was on Fuchsia Village with Sabo and Ace, and then he trained some more at Ruskina with Rayleigh, and then trained some more or fought some really hard, like, boss battles along the way throughout, like, Dressrosa, and then Totland, and now here at Wano, finally awoke to, like, the ultimate Gear 5th or his awakening. Okay, so Luffy really put in the hours. He put in the grinding. I'm playing Final Fantasy X again, so I'm using a lot of RPG terms right now. But I'm in Xanarkand. I'm getting close. I'm gonna finally beat Jecht. I've never did it. I'm gonna beat this damn game. I swear to God. Okay. Anyway, so my point is, Luffy really put in the hours of grinding, and 12 years was the amount of time it took him to awaken. So let's say Kaido gets his power 38 years ago, 12 years later, 26 years before the start of the story time, he awakens to his fruit, which is coincidentally around the same time that Orochi rose to power in Wano. Bam! How about that for a timeline to line up with everything? Yeah, that makes sense there. Okay. Now, if that's the situation, though, how about Momonosuke? Because Momonosuke ate the fruit, he immediately turned into a dragon. He didn't turn into a carp, okay? Well, I mean, I think the answer is pretty simple right there. It's an artificial one. And the whole point of it was probably like Vegapunk was trying to replicate an awakening. Maybe that was the purpose of the experiment. Maybe it wasn't necessarily trying just to clone a devil fruit, trying to replicate the effects of an awakened devil fruit. That might be what specifically Vegapunk was experimenting with, right? However, here's the thing. Why was it deemed a failure? Because it seems to me like, well, it kind of worked. Like, Momonosuke was able to turn into a dragon right away, and we see him now as an adult is a dragon comparable in size to Kaido, and he has the same abilities. It's just that it's a little bit more hard for him to control. But that makes sense because he never really trained with his fruit. And Momonosuke just hasn't done that training, and, even was, like, afraid of his own devil fruit for a while because he's like, I'm turning into a dragon. I hate this because Kaido is a dragon and he killed my father, so he wasn't actively trying to learn stuff about his devil fruit. And right now, where everyone's freaking out because the island's about to fall, this might be the moment where Momonosuke awakens to his actual flame clouds. So it's hard to tell if it's, like, a situation with, because it's a failure of a devil fruit, that's why Momonosuke does not have a proper grasp on his fruits because Vegapunk was not able to replicate it perfectly, or if it's just for the lack of Momonosuke's training. Or it could be a combination of both. Who knows? I don't. But, yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because it was one of those things where people have been commenting and they're just like, Kaido might have just been a fish and then he awakened to it. And I'm just like, that doesn't make any sense. And it's like, well, actually it does if you just don't think he's going to turn into a goofy fish. Let's look at some other awakened zones. Let's talk about, okay, I always forget about the demon guards at Impel Down. Ironic because Impel Down is my favorite arc in the story. But I always forget that the first time we even saw awakened devil fruits, period, was the demon guards at Impel Down, right? Everybody kind of forgets that usually. I'm just going to go through every single awakened fruit right here. I have it pulled up, okay? We got the 4 demon guards. There's also Mino Chihuahua, who is the 5th demon guard that was introduced in the cover series during the time skip. Mino Chihuahua has not been confirmed to be an awakened zone, but looks exactly like all of the other awakened jailer beasts. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that Mino Chihuahua is also an awakened zone. So that has 5 right there. Then Luffy. Then we have, those are all the zones that are awake. And I guess Kaido's not included on this because I guess it still hasn't been like 100% confirmed. Like Kaido came out and said, I am awakened, but he's awakened. Then we have Doflamingo, Katakuri, Lawn Kid that are Paramecia, and then some other characters that are non-canon, right? And so, okay, let's look at the regular zones, all right? Like when they awakened, they didn't really change their physical appearances all too much. Really, the only thing that changed there was their hybrid forms changed, because let's look at Minotaurus for a moment, who was like the most prominent demon guard in Impel Down. Minotaurus just has like human like midriff section, like his abs are human, and then his legs are a cow's legs, and his upper body is all like, it seems like unbalanced really how they can even move around, but it works. And then they have like the cow on top, okay? So, and that's the situation for Mino Koala, Mino Rhinoceros, and Mino Zebra, and Mino Chihuahua. All of the jailer beasts are like, in their hybrid form, are like 90% animal and only like 10% human that you can really see, and they still maintain the anthropomorphic like standing on 2 legs kind of appearance, okay? But those are regular zones, keep in mind. Those aren't awakened zones, so you can't use those as a basis for like other awakened zones, okay? So what are some awakened mythical zones that we know about? Well, so far just Luffy and Kaido, really. Maybe Yamato has an awakened mythical zone, the Okami, or like the Makami no Oguchi. Maybe she is awakened as well. I don't know. Also, Katarina Devon, and here's something interesting. Katarina Devon is an awakened, not an awakened, but a, this is so confusing. We're talking about zones. We're talking about mythical zones. We're talking about awakened mythical zones. This is so confusing. But Katarina Devon has the mythical zone model 9-tailed fox, or Kitsune. We only got to see a little bit of this fruit when, she took the form of Absalom. But when Katarina Devon jumped off of that platform and turned back into her original form, we saw the 9-tailed fox form. It was very briefly, but go back in the manga. I don't even know if it was in the anime, but go back into the manga. You see her transform. You see the 9-tailed Kitsune, and then when she lands, she's back to her human form, okay? So that implies, and Katarina Devon ate that fruit during the time skip, so only 2 years maximum she could have had that power. Probably closer to just 1 year she had that power, or even less. But she was able to eat the Kitsune fruit and instantly turn into a Kitsune. There was no awakened part of that involved. At least I don't think there is. So the only way that I've really come to terms with this is as follows. Every mythical zone is different. That's the way I took it. Luffy's might be the most unique one out there because he's the main character, and the Gorosei were even talking about how ridiculous the fruit is. So it's like you eat the Gamu Gamu no Mi, you don't instantly turn into the sun god Nika. You have to train, and then when you awaken, that's when you become the sun god. When Kaido ate the Ua Ua no Mi, he just turned into a regular koi fish. It wasn't until he awakened that he became a dragon. But other mythical zones, like Katarina Devon's, allow her to turn into the Kitsune and have the not transportation, but transformation, there we go, transformation abilities almost immediately after eating the fruit. Hers is different. At the end of the day, mythical zones are the rarest variety of devil fruit out there, despite the fact we've gotten like 5 or 6 of them just in the Wano arc alone. They are supposed to be ostensibly the rarest, which means Oda will probably mess around with the rules of them from fruit to fruit. Was Sengoku able to turn into a giant Daibutsu statue the first time he consumed his? Was Marco... Well, actually, we see Marco at age 15, and he's able to turn into a phoenix. So it wasn't like, you know, oh, I just turned into a regular bird that looks like a phoenix, and then I awakened to become an actual proper fiery bird phoenix, you know, and then have the flames of rejuvenation and revival and stuff like that. No, it seemed like Marco had that from, like, day one. Same thing with Katarina Devon. So I guess basically that's the rules of mythical zones is they change from fruit to fruit as Oda sees fit. That's the best I got, really. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm not really sure if there was a point to this, or if this is something that people have not already discussed before. Definitely people have discussed this before, but it was one of those just moments where I think something is just not possible in One Piece, or I think it's goofy or silly, and then I look into it a little bit, and I start thinking, and then I'm like, well, I guess it does make sense if you look at it that way, and I can't tell if it's just like, okay, I've been thinking about it so much, so I'm just like grasping at straws, or it does make sense. So I return thee to the very first question at the beginning of this video. Did Kaido used to be a fish? I don't know, but let's move on to goat facts. That's something I do know. I know about goats. Cue that intro. Let's go! Goat! 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 Goat facts! Yeah! Okay, so today we're talking about the mountain goat, which coincidentally is not actually a real goat. Damn it! The one thing! Let's talk about goats, mountain goats. They're not actually goats, and I'm going to say that right at the beginning because a lot of people are going to be like, you know, Tekking, mountain goats are not actually goats. They're more related to antelopes, I think. Whatever. You know, they're called mountain goats, and this is goat facts. Their name is goat. We're going with it, okay? Because I also think that's the first thing a lot of people think of when they think of a goat. They might think of the sure-footed mountain goat of the Swiss Alps, or whatever mountain range they tend to live in, okay? The sure-footed goat that walks the mountain and never falls down. Let's look at some of their character traits. They are capable of walking 450 meters, that's over 1,500 feet, in a mere 20 minutes. Vertical up a damn mountain that's taller than the Empire State Building. They're able to clear that, almost not like directly straight up, but rocky terrain, essentially straight up. They're able to clear 450 in 20 minutes. So those goats, they got some muscle there. Their wool is capable of sustaining temperatures of -50. I don't know Celsius or Fahrenheit. I didn't write that down, but I'm going to write down Celsius because that sounds more impressive, right? Let's see here. They're active mostly during sunrise to midday, and then when it starts, I guess the sun comes out and it's a little hotter out there, and they have all this wool on them. They kind of settle down. They take a mid-afternoon break, maybe they have some tea break. They have like a merienda, like katakuri. The goats are climbing the mountain. Why are the goats climbing the mountain? What happens when the goat gets to the top of the mountain? Does the goat become a dragon? No, that'd be silly. The goat becomes a demon. That's what happens. The mountain goat finally, you know, reaches the top and becomes a demon, and that's where demons come from. You know, there you go. go. They're awakened mountain goats. Okay, there we go. And then at dusk, when the sun goes down, they begin to climb again. They eat grasses, herbs. As you can imagine, because they live on mountains or rocky terrain, there's probably not a lot of foliage around, but they are still herbivores. So things like mosses, lichens, things that can grow in very harsh environments like mountains, that's what they eat. Let's see. Also salt licks. And that's the thing, like we'll see, not just mountain goats that are not actually goats, but real goats that can like climb up surfaces. They'll actually like climb up like a 91-degree surface just to have like a salt lick or something. Now, nothing can prevent them from reaching a salt lick. They have like a sixth sense. They're able to like know where the salt lick is. Like it's sense of smell, but they can like smell a salt lick like super far away. It's like they're super trained for that. But yeah. Also, something I wonder, their main predator is cougars, so you want to avoid the cougars on the mountainsides. That's not going to be too good there. And there was actually one fatality. I looked into this story. It was in Washington State at Olympic National Park a couple years ago, I think back in 2016. There was a dude that was hiking there with his wife and was gored by a mountain goat, and he died. And I'm like, oh my God, that's one of the only known recorded fatalities involving a mountain goat. Was this poor guy just got gored by one and got his insides, and then he just died. So don't mess with mountain goats, I guess. I mean, there's not a lot of recorded fatalities, but there's at least one, and one is enough, So anyway, yeah, there's your goat facts, not really goat facts. I love how we started this new series. We did one episode of goat facts on general knowledge. Then in the last video, I didn't do them at all. And now in this one, they're not even technically goats. They're more antelopes than goats. Whatever. I don't even know, man. What do you think, Barry? Holy shit, a shiny Espeon!